So everyone, the presentation is being recorded right now. I will send everybody a follow-up for y'all that attended the Tuesday session. I'll send that as well. I'm a little late on getting that out to you. But I have all y'all's email, and I'll send this as a follow-up to you with the recording. If you want a copy of the presentation, just let me know. Feel free to email me. If I don't respond, email me again. I get hundreds of emails, so I don't want to forget you. And so just make sure you get what you're asking for. And also, we'll send you a link to the newsletter if you haven't or not subscribed to it. That gives a list of classes. I'm starting to arrange our next series of presentations and a few hikes in the fall. Okay. Um, there is a live transcript that has been enabled. So you'll see words at the bottom of your screen. At the bottom, you should see a little square CC box and a little arrow. Okay. Click on that little arrow there, and you'll see where it says hide subtitle. Whenever you click hide subtitle, those words go away. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and crank up the presentation. Nini, if you wouldn't, or Connie, whenever I load this up, if you can just verify that once I get going here, that I have the right screen that is showing. I'm going to end the poll. Let me get this out of my way. All right. Okay. All right. So, Nini or Connie, can you see the right screen on there? Should be the main header. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's why I'll have you all as panelists. All right. So we're going to officially get started and rolling here. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Davis. I'm the County Extension Director for the University of Florida, IFAS, which stands for Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. Extension office here actually in Sumter. I'm in Sumter County today, but I'm the director of both Sumter and Hernando counties. Now, we're going to talk about some butterflies. It's just a basic presentation. I'm not going to go in the biology of the monarchs or queens too specific. It's going to be very basic, talking about the biology for those butterflies. I'll do something more in depth on that on a later presentation. This is just the overall how to attract butterflies into your yard. Now, I used to do this presentation a lot when I was a horticulture agent years ago here in Sumter County. So I've modified it a little bit and updated a few things. So hopefully it'll be enjoyable to you. And I'm going to share some of the secrets that I had when I had a butterfly garden. I grew up on a farm. We had just a very small one, only 5 acres. But that was my playground. And so I had a very, 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 very large butterfly garden. And so that's where I got a lot of experience of what attracts what and the proper ways on how to do that. And one of the people that I was leaned to at that time was Dr. Immel. He was at the Museum of Natural History at the Butterfly Rainforest, and also our good friend Dr. Jarrett Daniels. So using what we read in their books, I incorporated that into my butterfly garden. I had so many butterflies you could brush away from your hand. It was pretty crazy at that time. So I'm going to share some of the secrets for that. So here's the basic elements of a butterfly garden. So you have, first of all, sunlight is very important. Even though if you have an area with shade, you can have butterflies as well, specifically the zebra longwings. The food, which are the nectar plants, the host plants for the caterpillars and for the nectar. And then you have the larval plants for the caterpillars to feed on as well. Cover is very, very, very important. So it's really good to have a butterfly garden next to some trees, some cover, or to have some large shrubs incorporated into that butterfly garden. The reason is because butterflies are predated on, specifically against birds. And so it'll give them some protection. It'll give them some protection against the elements as well. Also with certain butterflies, such as zebra longwings will roost at night in these large shrub type plants. So if you have like Florida privet, for example, great native shrub for wildlife, this native privet, a lot of these butterflies will hunker down in there and they'll roost all together with that certain species. Cover is very important. And these are just a couple pictures of the butterfly rainforest that you have in Gainesville. And you can see, this is not a garden where it's just open full of flowering plants. It has a lot of cover, has a lot of water, has nectar plants and so on. The only thing they don't have are the host plants, and that's for a specific reason. And on the right, that's our demo garden here in Bushnell, and pine trees. Back in here is that Florida privet or Simpson stoppers used for cover as well. And you have our different types of plants. So you really have to have all four of those to have a really good butterfly garden. So you want to know the correct host plant. Some butterflies have several species of different host plants. Other butterflies are mainly specific to a certain group, such as your zebra swallowtail, pawpaws, milkweeds. That would be your queens and your monarchs. So there's a lot of books out there to give the host plants. There's some host plants that could be non-native or native. I kind of prefer people going towards the native host plants a lot of times. Knowing the correct nectar plants and also their color, not only their color, but their flower shape. So it's good to have diversity in the garden. Different flower shapes. There's different butterflies with different size proboscis, mouth parts. Some are longer than others, which enables them to feed on certain plants more than others. Some butterflies feed while they're flying. Some butterflies, like monarchs, actually kind of prefer to land on a platform. Okay, so you'll find them feeding on a lot of aster type flowers like Spanish needles or pentas, for example. Okay, and understanding the butterflies themselves, what they like, what kind of flowers, what kind of flower colors they prefer, and so on. So this is a cabbage white right there, and this is a Sappho longwing. This is at the feeding on the butterfly rainforest. Is the non-native species. Probably heliconid, just like our zebra longwing, probably in the same family. But the plant that I have here, I don't have in my regular plants, but the plant that it's feeding on is called agastache. And I'll see if I can write it in the chat box here. Agastache is a wonderful, there we go, is a wonderful nectar plant. And I first became familiar with it when I went up to the atrium and they had plant sales up there, and I bought the plant. Excellent butterfly plant, I'm going to tell you, and easy to grow. And this is a chase tree, is what this is. And whenever that chase tree blooms, that chase tree has a ton of different butterflies on it. And the chase tree has purple flowers, kind of like a crepe myrtle in a sense, kind of like that. Is deciduous and doesn't really get too tall. I think this one's called Shoals Creek, if I'm not mistaken. So knowing all these different types of flowers and shapes, these butterflies will kind of gravitate towards it. Now let's look at the butterflies themselves. Now they're in the order Lepidoptera. Basic entomology would put everything under orders. The insects, the animals that we have most of in the world is the Coleoptera, order Coleoptera, which are the beetles. Okay, Lepidoptera is second in the world. Now, in the United States, that might differ, but they're the second largest species of insects in the world, the Lepidopterans. Now, this includes butterflies and moths, okay, and skippers. Okay, we're not going to cover skippers and moths. That's for another day. Moths are included in Lepidoptera, as I just said. So a lot of different kind of species out there, and this is a cream striped owl, very huge butterfly feeding on this old fruit. This is a tree nymph, and this is a dido butterfly that's also feeding on agastache. And those are some of the tropical butterflies that they have at the atrium. So we have, depending on 160, 170-ish species of butterflies in Florida. They are cold-blooded insects. Keep that in mind. It's good to have it's not a bad idea to have like a rock or a stepping stone in the garden for these butterflies to land on, to cool themselves up, um, um, during um, a cold night, whatever, so they can warm up and start feeding. Like I said, all the butterflies roost at night. Butterflies during the day, moths at night. And that's some of the biggest difference between the two. Okay. And just basic entomology: head, thorax, abdomen. If my little 9 and 10-year-old bud camp kids can get this, y'all too can, y'all can as well. So it's head, thorax, abdomen. The head contains what? The head contains the eyes, the mouth, the antenna. Okay. Thorax, just think of thorax as the middle part of the body that controls the locomotion. So the wings, the legs. And then you have the abdomen. Abdomen has, the abdomen is the abdomen. So it has little claspers for reproduction, has the spiracles as well for breathing. So those are the 3 different body parts of this butterfly that you see here. And that is a zebra longwing. That's our state butterfly. We'll talk about that one specifically later on. The eyes are really, really cool. So they have compound eyes made of, okay, not hundreds, but thousands of ommatidia. And so these are like little clusters of light cells that, kind of like little, very, very, very small eyes. And so they can detect light and images, not in the same way we can. The 2 antennae and the 2 palpa located under the head, close to the proboscis, are covered in scales to detect little molecules in the air that helps them smell, basically. At the bottom, kind of at the bottom of the antenna, there's an organ called a Johnston's organ. Okay, Johnston's organ. And that organ helps maintain the butterfly's balance. This Johnston organs is not only found in lepidopterans, but found in dipterans, which is flies and other insects as well. Pretty cool. But it's not the Jacobson organ that is found in snakes. So I took that from my snake presentation. So it's a Johnston's organ. So it's kind of neat because that's what helps this butterfly balance when it's feeding and so on. So it helps it, while the butterfly is flying, because it detects gravity and wind. Pretty amazing little creatures. Okay. It is also used to identify mates because it can react to the beat frequency of the wings. So here you have a close-up view. It looks like one compound eye there, but in that compound eye, thousands of little facets, individual facets, ommatidia, that's found in this eye. And these butterflies detect ultraviolet light. Different plants emit different ultraviolet light, and that's very important to know. Some butterflies tend to favor certain ultraviolet light, but it's very important from my perspective designing a butterfly garden. I never hodgepodge my plants. I use masses of one color. And I'm talking about 5, 7, 9s, always odd numbers, masses of one color. Okay. And at the time, my butterfly garden didn't consist of that many plants, probably about 3 or 4 nectar plants, a lot of them, and some host plants mixed in. And the reason is, these butterflies, when they fly over, it's easier for them to detect that ultraviolet light as opposed to a little hodgepodge landscape, of different types of little lights whenever they're flying over. It's like a big beacon. Just think of it that way as they're flying over. And believe me, this works. It's really, really works. So plant these plants in large masses of the same color. It doesn't have to necessarily be the same plant, but using I use the same plant. I either plant all pentas or different types of plant. I think native lantana I used at the time, and it really does attract a ton of butterflies. So these butterflies perceive the most colors in the animal kingdom, and I'll show you later where on certain plants, the plants can actually tell the butterfly where to go where there's nectar, what flower has nectar and what doesn't, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool adaptation. So you have the eye, antenna, proboscis. So this is mouth. So think of it like a straw. And this is exactly how we teach our kids. You take a straw, put in a apple juice. Okay, that's a proboscis of a butterfly. Okay, and these butterfly, they have large antenna. Okay, and they're clubbed at the end. Both the males and females have this. Now, one of your questions said the males have a brushy antenna, females have a long clubbed antenna, thin clubbed antenna. No, both males and all butterflies have clubbed antenna. The ones that have the brushy antenna are the moths. That's how you tell the difference between males and females, because the females don't have that brushy antenna. So only clubbed antenna. Okay. And you can see how many legs do you see on this Gulf fritillary, by the way? Put in your Q&A, just real quick, just from a couple of people. Just count how many legs you see. 4? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up here. So do you see this? Do you see this right here? Okay, this is a leg. This is a leg folding in. Okay. This is because this is in the family. I say 4, 4, 4, 4. Very good. Okay, insects have 6 legs. So why does they have 4? So this is a leg right here. Okay. This insect, the Gulf fritillary, monarchs, red admirals, buckeyes, they're all in this family called Nymphalidae. Your swallowtails, which are your tiger swallowtail, your black swallowtail, those are in the family Papilionidae. Now you have other different, the cabbage white, I think the cabbage white and the sulfur, I think is Pieridae. So you have all these different types of families for butterflies. However, the nymphalids, monarchs, queens, gulfs, variegateds, fritillaries, and so on, are in this what we call brush-footed butterflies, where when they're resting, their front leg is folded next to their head. So it's kind of interesting. So whenever you see this insect feeding, it looks like it has 4 legs. So that's why they call it, that's why it's in that family. Just pretty cool, interesting fact. All right, so antenna and proboscis. Already said that they're clubbed. Contains hairs that act as sensors. They can detect mates and host plants as well with the antenna. The proboscis is just like a siphon, just like a straw, is basically what it is. And it sucks up water and nectar. It can be 3 times the body length. So like I said, some butterflies have a longer proboscis. So if you have a coral honeysuckle, tubular plant, not all butterflies are going to be able to feed on that plant. However, your sulfurs, your zebra longwing can, because they have a longer proboscis. So certain butterflies can feed on it, can take advantage of that. That's why it's good to have different flower shapes and sizes. Okay. And again, you have butterflies like this that kind of like each one of these little flowers here will suck out the nectar and feed on it. Then we have the thorax. So this is the locomotion. Consists of the legs, and the legs, the feet. If you ever look at the feet of a butterfly, and a lot of insects, they have what you call tarsus, and tarsi is plural. And these tarsi, what the butterflies will do, they'll land on a host plant and they'll do like a scratch and taste. And that's how they know if it's a host plant, using scratching with their tarsi. And of course, they use it to hang on to plants. The abdomen, which is this part right here, obviously, segmented, and it does have little holes called spiracles, which is used for breathing. You can see the spiracles really clearly on a caterpillar. Okay. The males have claspers for mating. The females have claspers for laying eggs and mating as well. Some of the butterflies are sexually dimorphic, where you can easily tell the difference between males and females. others not so. The wings are awesome in themselves. So butterflies' wings are kind of supported by veins that pass through them. They have muscles attached at the base of the wing connected to the thorax. A butterfly's wings are covered in these scales, and the scales protect them. And besides the veins, they have tubes and hardened walls and trachea for more support. But these little scales will help protect these butterflies. They're kind of like modified flattened hairs. Think of it that way. And these scales also release pheromones. So here you have a beautiful pipe vine that we'll talk about later, and a close-up version. It looks like a little armored plate in a sense, but all these little scales. So it's pretty interesting whenever you look at it under the microscope. Butterfly reproduction. Some have several broods per year, some don't. Some live for weeks, some live for months. It all depends on the species. The females lay the eggs on the leaf, flower, bud, or twig. Sometimes the legs are on top of the leaf. Sometimes the eggs are below the leaf. But the eggs are attached to a leaf by a type of glue. Here's a very small egg right there. Most of the eggs that you'll find is underneath the leaf of a plant. And whenever that egg hatches, you get this caterpillar coming out, which is called the first instar. Okay. And then you'll have different stages of caterpillars, 3 or 4 instars, whatever species it is, until it pupates into a chrysalis, and then it emerges as the adult. So these butterflies have a complete life cycle, okay, just like flies and just like beetles. Okay, and here you have some postmen, male and female, and you have some tree nymphs as well at the butterfly rainforest. So metamorphosis. Like I said, they have a complete metamorphosis: egg, larva, pupa, chrysalis, and adult, which is the imago. And so this is a very special butterfly, Schaus butterfly, which is found in South Florida. I can't remember if it's endangered or threatened. I forgot what the status is. Very similar to a giant swallowtail, but different species. But look at all the eggs. Okay, that's a lot of eggs. And this is the caterpillar right there. And the caterpillars have these prolegs at the front, and I'll show you pictures later, but especially with caterpillars like now, I've never messed with a Schaus caterpillar, never seen one, but they're very similar to a giant swallowtail caterpillar, which looks like bird poop. And a lot of these caterpillars have these little 2 horns that come out called osmeterium, and it emits a foul odor. Kind of puts out these little red horns, kind of like a scare tactic, but also emits this very, very, very foul odor. But on some of these caterpillars, they'll have big eyes on them to scare away the predators. Some will have spines on them, but they're non-venomous. And some of them will have these big osmeterium to scare away the predators. And camouflage, I mean, it looks just like bird poop. And look at this is a giant swallowtail pupa attached by this webbing right here. And it looks just like a part of the tree, doesn't it? And look right here, you can see the spiracles. Okay. And then it goes through the whole metamorphosis, and then that butterfly will emerge from that. So here's our state butterfly, this zebra longwing, and this is on a passion vine. So that's its host plant, one of the many passion vines, and this is maypop that we have. I think I took this out in our demo garden, and you can see how it's landing on the plant, uses the scratch and taste. Say, hey, that's a good host plant. And you can see the claspers, the female. Okay, we only know this is a female because it's laying eggs on this one. And then you have the egg right there, little tiny egg, usually on the stem or underneath the leaf. And you can see right here on the proboscis, look how long that proboscis is on that butterfly. It's coiled up very, very long, which enables this butterfly to feed on tubular flowers, other flowers that other butterflies cannot do. And all that's pollen, by the way. And we'll talk more about that a little later. So the caterpillar is very voracious. especially eastern black swallowtails that feed on like um, different types of herbs, which I'll show you later. Um, but they will completely devour a plant. So will gopher larias, and that's a good thing. So a lot of times we have people call in, believe it or not. You can ask our master gardeners and say, "Hey, I have a milkweed or my passion vine, and something's eating all my leaves. What can I do to?" And they're caterpillars. What can I do to spray my caterpillar? I'm like, no, leave it alone. It's a butterfly. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, with my host plants, I never, me personally, okay, for design, I never put my host plants independent of my nectar plants. So I never had a group of host plants per se together because it's just going to be sticks. So I'll give you an example. I put my milkweed, I interplanted my milkweed with my pentas. Okay, does that make sense? So if the milkweed, the caterpillar is on it, but I'm still having the aesthetic beauty of the pentas. So, instead of just seeing sticks. So if that makes any sense to you, yeah, that's usually how I design my butterfly garden. I always interplanted a lot of times I interplanted my host plants with my regular plants. And with plants such as eastern black swallowtail with the types of herbs and stuff like that, I mean, you have to plant a lot of them because they're voracious. So they can have in different colorations. This is a gopher lariat caterpillar. Notice the spines. These are not venomous spines. It's fine. This is just all fake. This is like, stay away. I could be harmful, which we do have venomous caterpillars, but those are all a type of moth. Reaches full size in about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the species, depending on how much food they're eating, depending on the temperature and other things. Okay, that's in generality is 2 to 4 weeks. And some of these guys, like this one right here, this is a sulfur, I think a type of sulfur caterpillar. They can hide very, very well. So these yellow caterpillars blend in very well with the yellow flowers. Okay. So a lot of camouflage going on with them. Depending on the species too, when at full size, they usually leave the host plant. Now the Attila butterfly will actually pupate on the host plant. But in most of them, they'll leave the host plant. And this is why I like to have shrubs nearby, because they'll leave the host plant and they like to find a shrub or something where they climb up it, and they usually have the pupa under the leaf where it's protected from the elements. Why make them crawl a long way? That's more predation with fire ants and everything else. So that's why I like to leave a good, tall, shrubby type plant near my host plant so these caterpillars can climb up it for protection. They form a little cremaster to support the pupa. So here you have different types of caterpillars. You see the eyes to scare away the predators. And basically the cremaster is this a series of small hooks or a single hook. So the caterpillar spins a pad of silk onto the site where they're going to pupate in that area, and then the hooks of the cremaster can then attach. So here is a chrysalis, a pupa. Okay. And so the larval tissues transform into adult structures where metamorphosis takes place. And again, it can take weeks, months, or even years, depending on the species and environmental conditions. A lot of these species, the pupa will turn clear when they emerge. So if you have, like, for example, if you want to rear out monarch butterflies, you can tell when that monarch's about to hatch because that chrysalis will become clear. You can see that butterfly inside that chrysalis. And they usually most often hatch in the morning, early morning hours. And whenever they come out of that pupa, they kind of look like this. It's kind of a fuzzy picture on that one. But this is a gopher lariat coming out of a chrysalis. And you can see how its wings are not fully developed yet, but look how big its abdomen is. Is this because this is where all the hemocell, all the blood is? It's going to pump all that blood, all that hemocell out of its abdomen into its wings. This is a vulnerable part of the butterfly. Do not help the butterfly out. Leave it alone. Okay. If you touch that butterfly, if you damage that butterfly, you basically kill that butterfly. And so just leave it alone. It's going to pump its blood into the wings. Its wings are going to unfold, go out and harden, and it's going to fly out for the day. That's why they have an emergence early morning, right? They don't want to have it at night. So here's a monarch that has emerged. So cicadas too. It's another insect that's hatching out right now. Leave these newly hatched individuals alone. I know a lot of people want to help them out, but let Mother Nature take its course. Okay? And they usually fly away in about a couple hours. So butterflies can, I already said that. So have long distance migration. And here is a ton of monarchs right here. Sorry, coughing fit. So let's talk about some of the nectar plants. So we have for nectar, energy, nutrients, proteins, chemicals, and pollen. So the preferred colors. Here are my favorites: purple, red, and yellow. Those are my favorites. I really like red in a garden. So these are my three standard colors that I have in my butterfly garden. And like I said, certain butterflies would be attracted to more. Here's a skipper on this red Penta. I think this is a Liatris, or it could be a Carpophorus. And this is a type of Rudbeckia coneflower. And like I said, use lots of masses of different colors, and you're going to find out that it's going to increase the number of butterflies visiting your garden. Now, pentas. No, I like pentas. I stay away from the dwarf pentas. I like the tall pentas. They attract the butterflies a little more. They are a true perennial. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. They're a true perennial, and they can take full sun or partial shade. I like to have white pentas in the garden, and these are just a few pics of my old butterfly garden, and you can see all these different types of swallowtails that absolutely love these pentas. And the reason why I like the white is because in the evening, because whenever you have a butterfly garden, you're not going to only attract butterflies. You're going to attract skippers. You're going to attract moths, especially at night. So you're going to have these hummingbird moths, these sphinx types moths, and they really love these white flowers. In fact, some species of sphinx moths will actually lay their eggs on the pentas, actually a host plant. And you'll find a caterpillar feeding on it. It will not strip it. You probably won't even know that caterpillar is there. But it looks like the caterpillars, those type moths look like, if you ever had a tobacco or tomato hornworm caterpillar, which grows into a beautiful moth, that's about the size and shape of these different caterpillars. So in this garden, I had just a massive red, okay, massive with some whites thrown in. Now that's a non-native plant, but for native, you can't beat tropical sage, okay, if you want a red plant. And the nice thing, the benefit of tropical sage is that not only it's a native, so it's adapted to our environment. Once established, it's drought tolerant. You don't really have to fertilize it. In fact, I would probably tell you not to fertilize it. It grows like wildfire in some areas. It grows pretty tall. I like to deadhead mine a lot. So I like to trim off the dead flower heads, creates a much bushier type plant with more flowers. That's my preference. I have this at my home to this very day. And I absolutely love it. And it reseeds, which is pretty cool. So it'll reseed in the garden. Sometimes you get these variations of colors. You may have some white thrown in there as well, with these different types of sports that may come out. So it is a reseeding perennial, easy to take cuttings and everything. Hummingbirds love it. I have a couple hummingbirds that visit this plant. And here you have a monarch right here visiting one of our salvias in our demo garden. Okay. So a really, really good butterfly plant. You can't go wrong with Salvia coccinea. And another one is a firebush. And here's the cool thing about firebush. Okay, firebush is a great nectar plant for hummingbirds, for different types of butterflies. Look at this Gopher going to town on these small flowers on the firebush. This happens to be, I think this is a dwarf There's a native, there's other types. There's Calusa, there's a lime color. There's all types of firebush out there. I love every single one of them. Full sun, partial shade, easy take cuttings of. Zebra longwings love to go to these plants as well. But the reason why I like firebush in my butterfly garden, and I have firebush in my garden today, and I live in a home much like, for y'all that live in the villages or, these developments. The reason why I like firebush is because not only provides the nectar, but guess what? It's kind of like a woody shrub in a sense, kind of herbaceous, but look at the leaves. So it offers an opportunity for what? For cover, because it gets big. So enables these butterflies to hide out, enables them to also have a safe place to pupate. Okay, so that's a benefit of having this wonderful native plant of firebush in the garden. Another plant that I used in the past was Senecio, which is Mexican flame vine. Now, some people can be allergic to this because I think it's related to, oh my gosh, I think mango, poison ivy. No, I don't think so. I know some people have an allergic reaction to this. So it's in the Asteraceae family. But I had this growing up a trellis, and whenever it flowered, very easy to grow. Whenever it flowers out, the butterflies actually loved it because it's something it's an aster type flower because it enables them to have a platform to land on. And as I said, if you want this presentation, I can send it to you. So I'm not spending too much time on these individuals. And then you have Carpophorus, which is different types. This is deer's tongue, perennial, purple flowers, grows about 3 feet tall. Excellent. You can collect. And here's the thing with these native plants like deer's tongue, this Carpophorus and these other native plants, is that you can collect the seeds from it. So I don't know why people are going out and buying yearly different types of annuals. Go out there and get a plant, and in order to incorporate it into your garden, you can let it seed out naturally, but you can also collect the seeds from this. And you can plant them in your garden. Okay, so this is something I've done many times, especially with Liatris. Collected the seed, put them in the refrigerator, let it go dormant for the wintertime, plant them in the spring, and I have all new Liatris. Very simple to do, okay, to maintain these in your garden. Now, I'm going to have to confess, okay, long time ago, I used Lantana camara, and that's whenever we didn't know that Lantana camara was an invasive species. However, I did use Gold Mound at the time, which is the yellow, I think, sterile variety, but I used other ones in there, the purple Lantana, before we knew they were really invasive. Okay. And, Lantana is a wonderful butterfly plant. It is without a doubt. However, you don't want to plant, there's Lantana camara. We do have sterile cultivars out there. Definitely plant those. But if you don't know if it's a sterile cultivar, don't plant it because they can be really invasive. But having said that, I've used native Lantana and non-native Lantana. I prefer native Lantana. Not only reason why it's native, because it doesn't get woody as some of those non-native Lantana, and it lasts longer. And to me, it does. And you don't have that, planting an invasive plant that could hybridize with the natives. So this is just one of the native Lantanas out there, this button sage. And look at the flowers. So this enables a large host of butterflies to feed on the nectar of this plant. And what's cool about plants such as this Lantana, like I said, butterflies see through ultraviolet light. They see ultraviolet light. Whenever they're looking at this plant, not all of these little flowers have nectar in them. That one doesn't, that one doesn't, that one doesn't. So through ultraviolet light, these butterflies know exactly what to hone in on. Okay, isn't that pretty cool? So the plant is telling the butterfly what has nectar in it and what doesn't. All right, so dotted horse mint. man, you can't beat a really great butterfly plant than this one as well. This one actively reseeds in the garden. I love purple. So makes a nice color. And, you know, going back to landscape design, be careful about your color placement too. So you want to do, I like to use opposite ends of the color spectrum. So think of college football colors, okay? Orange, blue, okay? Garnet gold. So you have these opposite ends of the color spectrum. So reds, I would never plant a red and yellow. I would usually plant those middle or behind in the background. I usually kind of leave the purples, the whites kind of in the front, or I use the whites intermixed with red and yellow. Always use white in the garden, by the way. You don't have to use white a lot, but add a couple, just about 1 or 2 whites in there, and it makes the other colors pop aesthetically from a visual pleasing perspective. But you know, this dotted horse mint is wonderful. It's so drought tolerant. It's a perennial, it's fall blooming. And I'm gonna tell you, whenever this plant flowers out, not only butterflies, a whole bunch of different types of wasps and bees and flies will visit this plant. So if you've not heard of dotted horse mint, you need to get it. Just one of my favorite plants out there. And you know, a lot of the resources from your native plants can be found at your local native plant society. Here's Copperforus corymbosus, so a paintbrush. I've used this a lot in the past as well. Just a beautiful plant. A lot of swallowtails really like this plant. And it gets about 3 feet or more. So here are some examples in our demo garden. Here at Bushnell. So you can see our native plants here, and look at the queens. Oh my goodness. I had so many queens on this plant visiting it, and they would be nonstop going back and forth. Okay. All right, your button bush. This is a plant that it gets pretty large. If you live next, it's not for everybody. If you live next to a pond, a lake or river, then I would suggest planting button bush. But it has this little ball of stamens, much like bottlebrush. Tiger swallowtails really love this from my experience. But just a neat plant. If I take you hiking like here at, you know, Hog Island or Marsh Bend, and this plant's flowering out, you'll find a ton of butterflies, especially tigers, visiting this plant. Like I said, coral honeysuckle. Well, it doesn't smell, but attracts the butterflies, sulfurs, zebras, hummingbirds, moderate grower, not aggressive. It should be in every butterfly garden. Then if you want more purples, you go with the Stokes asters. Stokes aster really likes a little bit more moist soil. It's not a drought tolerant plant at all. If you have an irrigated landscape, that's going to be fine. Look at this beautiful purple flower. Okay, absolutely gorgeous and great for cut flower arrangements as well. But another great plant for the large swallowtails to visit. All right. So on our property, when I had the very, very large butterfly garden, in the back of the pasture, one of the plants that we had predominantly, because we didn't have cows at the time, so when we got rid of our cows, we had Spanish needles growing in the back. That and a plant called sicklepod, cassia. I never could get as many butterflies in my garden as I did with those Spanish needles. That Spanish needles is like the best butterfly plant in the world. To me, it is fantastic for attracting butterflies. Biden's alba. Beggar's ticks, because the seeds will stick to you. Okay. Here is Spanish needles. I think this is in our demo garden. That's a Pat Leach, my Sumter County Massachusetts. So I call all my Spanish needles Pat Leach, because she's the one that introduced Spanish needles into the garden. I'm like, Pat, what are you doing? Don't do it. And Oh, I'll trim them, it'll be fine. Yeah. So it reseeds like crazy, and it can become a weed. So having said that, do you want to put this in your home garden? I would say you probably do not. If you have some acreage, some good sized property, then sure, why not? Put it in the back, let it reseed naturally, and you'll attract a whole bunch of pollinators. Purple coneflower is awesome too. Gulf fritillaries and other plants like this, they do have a white swan, a white one out there. They have the non, I showed you the non-native yellow. That was found at the butterfly rainforest. But these plants do very, 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 very well. And here you have a Gulf fritillary feeding on a coneflower as well. And Liatris, blazing star. They have different types of Liatris, different sizes. This is one that's a little bit small. This one right here got about 3 to 4 feet tall. And whenever we planted this plant, look at all the butterflies. All the Gulf fritillaries visited this plant. And this is another one that you can easily take seeds of. This is a native as well. Now, Salvia coccinea, the tropical sage is a salvia, a native salvia, but we do also have non-native salvia. So this is mealy cup sage. This is Wendy's Wish salvia, and my mind is blanking. That's my own plant. My mind's blanking on that. But I like Wendy's Wish a lot. This is a beautiful salvia, but salvias are really easy to grow. I like the perennial salvias. You get a lot of bang for the buck, a lot of different shapes, flower shapes, sizes. Highly recommend all the salvias. Okay. And you have blanket flower. Now, it was heard that they actually said that this is not a Florida native. Nini or somebody y'all might want to correct me on that and see if I can confirm that. I always had it listed as a Florida native, but I think they changed that. But regardless, blanket flower is a wonderful plant. It's called blanket flower because it's the color of like the blankets of the Native Americans, like the Seminoles and so on. So, and they have native and non-native species. This is a native Gaillardia pulchella, very cold hardy, flowers year round, reseeds in the landscape. Butterflies love it. So, excellent plant. So if you're just starting out and this thing's, oh my gosh, there's so many plants. If I was you, I'd just get some Gaillardia, get some milkweed, get some salvia, and get some passion vine. And you're off to a good start, my friends. So passion vine, there's different types of passion vine. This is maypop, this one right here. This is a host plant to 4 different butterflies, Julia, variegated, Gulf, and zebra longwing. So a lot of different butterflies. Now, where I'm at, we don't have the Julias. That's further south. But we do have the variegated, the Gulfs, and the zebras. In fact, in our demo garden, we have quite a number of variegated fritillaries visited, which is a different butterfly altogether. But the passion vine is very easy to grow. You want the caterpillars to eat it because it helps keep it within bounds. It can get out of control in certain cases, but just, it's a wonderful plant. Look at that flower. This one call it maypop because of the fruit. It pops. That was old game by pioneer kids. They stomped on the fruit and popped it. That's why they call it maypop. Now they do have non-native passion vine. And I always encourage people to stick with a native. Don't go with a non-native, especially the red. The caterpillars are not going to do as well on that plant in general as the natives. So stick with the natives on that. And as a person who's now severely allergic to fire ants, I'm going to let you know that this attracts ants. Because the passion vine, like other plants, have what's called extra floral nectaries. And so this is what wasp and this is what ants feed on. So ants, different types of ants are attracted to this. So just be careful when you go in there pruning. Make sure you wear gloves and you just, are aware of your surroundings on that. I found out the hard way. So beach sunflower, Helianthus, easy plant to grow, sometimes can get out of bounds. They have different types of beach sunflower. They have one more compact than another one. But look at that aster type flower. A lot of butterflies visit this. Drought tolerant, doesn't like wet feet. Gets about 1 to 2 feet tall. Flowers consistently. So this is kind of a no-brainer, and it gets pretty big. So if you need to fill an area, and if you don't, you don't want to spend a lot of money on filling that area, this plant will cover quite a good sized area of 2 feet, a little bit, sometimes a little larger. Like I said, it will reseed out. Okay, a couple more plants will go with the butterfly. So green eyes, this is more of a, so if you're in my Brooksville County, we have a lot of green eyes in Brooksville. We actually have green eyes growing out in front of our office, in our Brooksville office. Likes that real sandy soil. Has that yellow aster type flavor. Kind of like flower, kind of looks like a rosin weed to me, but very, very small. And I've used green eyes in the past, and they're cute plants. They don't grow very tall. Okay. And then you have rosin weed, which does grow tall. And rosin weed is a standard flower in my garden. I have it in my house right now. It gets about 3 to 4 feet tall. Absolutely in love with rosin weed. So rosin weed, red salvia, passion vine, milkweed. Okay, you're doing pretty good. All right, let's look at some host plants. I'm going to go through each butterfly with a specific host plant. Okay, this is going to be very basic on it. I'm not going to go too in depth on each species. Okay. Some host plants contain toxins that the butterfly and caterpillars uses. This is called sequestering. Avoid using pesticides in the butterfly garden. Okay. So here you have a Julia, okay, feeding on agastache as well. Good plant. I can tell you that agastache is like one of the best plants in the world. That's a monarch on an agastache. So monarchs, Dr. Daniels talked about the monarch, now it's an endangered species. So we want to make sure that we promote our monarchs in the garden. And again, on the adult monarch, like all the other nymphalid butterflies, the first pair of legs, which are attached to the first segment, are curled up at the start of the thorax, are not visible. Something neat that y'all probably didn't know about. Look at the caterpillar. Now notice it has 2 little hairs. One at the head, one at the back. This is just used for sensory. The ones in the back are basically used to fool predators. Here's the chrysalis, monarch chrysalis, and queen chrysalis is beautiful. And you have your milkweeds. We always like to go with native milkweeds. You have a lot of Asclepias out there. You have, this one's tuberosa. You have incarnata, tomentosa. You have a sand, what is it? I forgot what it's called, but ones that grows in sandy soil with a big leaf. That's actually, I think this one right there. But all the milkweeds, any native milkweed that you can get, put in your garden. And I would don't plant 3 milkweed, get 7 to 9, plant a lot out there. So that way it gives the caterpillar some food, some forage, and it'll attract a lot more. And so this is so if you track milkweeds, so you got 2 potential of having 2 butterflies stay in your garden, monarchs and queens. Okay. Now notice this queen has 2 little dots at the high wing. So do, this one doesn't have that. So, but so do monarchs. Monarchs has the same thing. Those little 2 dots can tell you if it's a male or female. These are sexually dimorphic species. These are the males, the ones with the dots. Females don't have the dots. Okay. So this is a female, this is the male. See the little dot? And they're feeding on this native plant. So having the milkweed, you can attract, this is that sand pine milkweed, or I forgot the common name on it. But using this milkweed, you can have two different butterflies. So here's the caterpillar of the monarch. Here's the caterpillar of the queen. Notice has two little, you know, hairs, if you will, front and back, but the queen also has one in the center. Okay. So the pattern repels the birds, and this is what we call, they're both like bitter. They don't taste well because they're sequestering all the, I think it's alkaloids, if I'm not mistaken, from the, or the toxins from the milkweed. So it has a bitter taste to the bird. So this is what we call Mullerian mimicry. So the viceroy also does the same thing, but the viceroy has a different host plant, but looks very, very similar to a monarch and queen. That's called Mullerian mimicry. And here you have mating. Mating can happen in any time, anywhere. I just stepped out from my front yard and there's two monarchs, mating outside my front door. And so this is the male. See the dot on the back, and that's the female. Okay. So pipevine. Oh, pipevines are beautiful. There's another one I don't cover on here called red spotted purple. That's absolutely gorgeous as well. But the pipevine has these iridescent back wings to it. I believe this is almost sure this is the male. I think the female is not as iridescent. But these pipevines, these swallowtails, prefer plants in this pipevine family. So Escherichia, so the woolly pipevine, different types of pipevine out there, snake root, I think, which is a native. But you want to leave pipevine, give it like a trellis or arbor, and you'll get these caterpillars on it for these pipevine. Okay, but that's just two examples. That's not all of them. Okay, there's two examples, some of the native host species, and we have the spice bush swallowtail. And in my neck of the woods, for swallowtails, I predominantly had spice bush, and because unfortunately we have some invasive plants on our property, and one of them is the camphor tree. So the camphor tree, the only good thing about a camphor tree is that, I guess you can call it good, is that it is it is a host plant to a spice bush swallowtail. But those camphor trees are very invasive, so don't grow them. So the spice bushes, sassafras, red bay, spice bush. Here's sassafras right there. This red bay, Bercia. Those are some of the native plants used for this spice bush swallowtail. Look at the caterpillar. It has these large eyes on it here to scare away. It has those big osmeterium, those horns I'll show you in a minute, and the pupa. This is a male. This is a female. Okay. So notice the female doesn't have as much blue on the hind wings as the male. So these are, again, two sexually dimorphic species. Tiger swallowtail is one of our bigger swallowtails out there. Again, large caterpillar, large butterfly. They do have a black morph out there that's usually female. So what you think may be a giant swallowtail or a Palamedes or something else is probably a black eastern tiger swallowtail, a female. Okay. Now, I think there's 6 or 7 different native species that they are host plants to. It could be tulip tree, which you'll find in North Florida a lot. Black cherry. What else? Pop ash. However, their preferred host plant throughout Florida is the sweet bay, the Magnolia virginiana. And so this is a plant that thrives near rivers and wetland areas. Okay, so it is a magnolia, but it's a different type of magnolia that prefers wet areas. So hence that'll tell you where the tigers are. So you're going to be able to have this in your yard for most everybody? No, unless you plant this next to a lake or river next to you. You probably are not going to attract this to great success. However, they can be flybys. So I've had these fly in my garden. I've had these here. So you'll see them flying on occasion. visiting, feeding on your flowers. And they're quite large. Giant swallowtail. So your non-native orange, okay, navel, Valencia, Hamlin, all those are host plants to our giant swallowtail. Wild lime, Xanthoxylum. We had this in a demo garden. Very cool plant. Native lime that this and the Schaus butterfly feed on. And your box thorn, which, I don't know if I'd plant that in the garden. If I were you, I'd stick with a wild lime or maybe like a sweet orange. These are just a couple. There's some other native plants that this plant will lay its eggs on. These are some of the just 3 common ones. But very large butterfly, but notice it's a black butterfly with a yellow marking at the top here, okay? Kind of like a V, okay? There's another butterfly that looks very similar to this that doesn't have this. Here's the caterpillar right there. It looks just like bird poop, doesn't it? And so it has these, this caterpillar will pupate out, but in Florida, well, other places too, I'm sure, but we call these orange dogs here in Florida, the caterpillars. And then caterpillar and a butterfly that's a little bit smaller is eastern black swallowtail. Parsley, fennel, dill, those herbs, bishop's weed, they'll feed on. This is a very, very easy butterfly to have in your landscape, especially if you have an herb garden, such as parsley, fennel, dill. I actually used to go to Home Depot and Lowe's, and they have the herbs, and I'd find the caterpillars on the herbs, and that way I know that they don't have pesticides on them too, right? Because if you want to choose a host plant, and if that host plant's clear of insects at the box store, it's hit or miss whether it has a systemic insecticide in it or not. If that host plant has aphids on it or some kind of pest, then it probably doesn't have a systemic or anything else on it. But I actually used to go and buy the herbs just for the butterfly, not for the herb. I see a whole bunch of caterpillars. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this home and rear them out. They are voracious feeders. Good grief. They will eat a lot. So plant lots of fennel and dill for these caterpillars. And again, they have that red horn, that osmeterium on them as well. Okay. And we have gold rim swallowtail. And we have, so this one doesn't have the yellow bar at the top, only at the bottom. And again, these pipe vine type flowers. This was a pipe vine at my house that I grew on a trellis, and we were able to attract the caterpillars of the gold rim and polydamas, and very easy butterfly to attract if you get these pipe vine type flowers. Just make sure, I don't know on the pelican flower or the calico flower, I have to go back and just make sure that they're not listed as a caution or invasive. And you have zebra swallowtail pawpaws. This is a butterfly that you're going to have a hard time keeping in your landscape unless you grow pawpaws. Pawpaws like sandy soil. They're typically seen in pastures down here. So if you're driving near a pasture and see a small shrub in the middle of full sun in a pasture, it's probably a pawpaw. Cows won't eat them. You can't really transplant pawpaws a lot of times because they have a huge taproot. So you end up killing the plant. However, you may get some visiting and wandering by with these zebra swallowtails. They have a long tail. Now, the ones in the spring, their tail will be shorter than the ones in the summer. The summer emergence usually has a longer tail, but just an absolutely gorgeous butterfly to have. And then you have your Palamedes, which is huge, about the size of a tiger, eastern tiger. I think a little bit bigger than a giant swallowtail, if I'm not mistaken. But the bays, silk bay, swamp bay, red bays, all the bays they'll feed on. Here are the 2 little horns. You see on the right, the eye, that's called osmeterium. And that is where it's used to scare away the predator and has this foul odor. And then you have your European cabbage white. Very easy butterfly to attract. You have this wild mustard that you see on the roadsides. That's common. That's how come if you look driving 471 here in Sumter or other roads, if you see a lot of white yellow mustard going on the side of the road, you'll see a lot of white butterflies. These are usually the cabbage whites. Ornamental kale is a type of brassica. This is a great winter plant to use ornamentally. I use it a bazillion times in the resorts that I work. They have purple and white. And the nice thing about the ornamental kale is that guess what? It's a host plant to a butterfly. So now you get not only the beautiful plant, but you get the butterflies. And really, the caterpillars don't do that much damage on the plant. So that makes it nice. But again, another easy butterfly to attract. And if you get any senna, coffee senna, Christmas, senna bicapsularis, whatever one's out there, sickle pods are kind of like a weed, but that's growing in pastures. But all these sennas, cassias, whatever, are host plants to these sulfur type butterflies, which like these, they have a long proboscis and they really like these long flowers, such as firebush and so on. And then you have your little cassia blue, about the size of your thumbnail. Beautiful little butterfly, very small. And if you have plumbago, you have cassia blue, guarantee it. And they're about the size of the flowers. They're very flower petal. They're not very big. But Eastern milk pea, Dr. Bush, which is a type of plumbago as well. These are all the plants out there that's used for host plants. And then you have the Viceroy, which mimics the monarch and queen, a little bit darker in color than a monarch, dark like the queen, but striped on top like the monarch, but it has this little line going through the hind wings that differentiates it. It is small. To me, it's smaller than a monarch. You'll always find it near wetlands because its host plant are willow type plants, such as the Carolina willow. So that's when you'll see a lot of Viceroys. This was taken at Circle B Preserve, Polk County, and right in the wetland system. So that's where you'll see those. And the Gulf fritillary is probably one of the easiest butterflies to attract. I would say the easiest butterfly to attract. Just get some passion vine, you got butterflies. We're going to talk to passion vine, but that's what the caterpillar looks like. Non-venomous spines, very voracious. If you have passion vine in the full sun, you'll probably have predominantly Gulf fritillaries. If you have passion vine mostly in the shade, you'll probably have zebra longwings predominantly, and you could have a mix if you have both. And then if you have a full sun area, you could have variegated fritillaries as well. And here's the zebra longwings. Actually didn't put a butterfly, I showed you earlier, forgot to put my adult, but that's what the caterpillar looks like as well, but white in color, has these little spines. But the interesting thing with zebra longwings is that they live a long time, for months, because it's their ability to eat pollen and nectar. So pollen has more protein in it and other nutrients. So it enables that butterfly to live longer. And so instead of weeks, it can survive for months. And you have your white peacock, which is very easy to attract, especially if you like Phalaenota Florida, frog fruit, whatever you want to call it. This is a host plant for this butterfly. So I've always had a ton of white peacocks in my pasture because we had a lot of this. So very easy plant, very easy butterfly to attract. And white peacocks are gorgeous. They have a little white on the wings, orange, cool looking butterflies. And then you have the buckeye as well, foxglove, black senna, a lot of the native quote unquote weeds out there are host plants to the buckeye. Both the white peacock and buckeye are kind of low altitude flyers, kind of hugging to the ground. And once you get into these butterfly gardens and butterflies, I guarantee it, Jarrett can tell you butterfly flying by, how high it is and how fast it is, whatever, what kind of butterfly it is. So you have the red admiral as well as a cool little butterfly. This is one in our demo garden that was getting the moisture from the ground. And what's interesting, this is that feeds on pellitory, which is a quote unquote weed, and burning nettle, which is this one right here. And for Floridians, if you step on burning nettle, yeah, it burns. Little spines, urticating spines that get in your feet when you step on it, and it burns a lot. So, but this is what these butterflies will lay their eggs on. All right, lastly, I already told you about cover. Now, unfortunately, we have beneficials eating beneficials, and this is life as you know it in the butterfly garden. You have predatory stink bugs that will feed on the caterpillars. You have ants that feed on caterpillars. You have assassin bugs that'll feed on butterflies. So if you look really close, this is a skipper. Okay, look below, right here. That's an assassin bug. If that skipper, if that assassin bug, he's probably a little too small. But if he was a wheel bug, this skipper would be food. Okay, but look at the proboscis, by the way. So this is what these assassin bugs do. They hang out near the flowers, and they wait for these butterflies or other insects to come near, and they ambush them. So not only assassin bugs, ambush bugs, but also our arachnids. So our spiders, right? And so this is a green lynx. This is a female green lynx spider. This is out in our demo garden. And she was waiting near the native plant area and the flowers. And this, unfortunately, a gopher Larry went down to feed, and she pounced on it, okay, and killed it. And if you've ever seen a green lynx spider, they're incredibly hard to see. They blend in so well with the leaves. Ambush bugs blend in really, really well with the different flowers like lantana and pentas and those type of plants. So predation, unfortunately, predation does happen. This is a buckeye that was probably either getting very, very old, or maybe a bird got a hold of it or something like that. So expect that in the butterfly garden. That's why you provide enough host plants and cover to give these butterflies a fighting chance. So before we go to our polls, here is my email. If you want to copy this presentation, just let me know and I'll send it to you. The recording, I'm only sending out to the people who attended this presentation, so it's not going to be out for the public. I'll send that out probably in a couple of days to everyone. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And whenever I send an email to y'all, you all will get my email, so you'll have it through there as well. So let me give out the poll really quick on the post. Make sure I covered everything. All right. There's a test right there. And so we're going to go over some of the questions. I'm sorry for my congestion. Let's see. Julieta plumbago. There is a native plumbago. The blue plumbago is native to South Africa. Even though it's non-native, it's still a really good plant. Viceroys, again, like willows, so they're not milkweed butterflies. Yeah, so you field collect Asclepias seeds, and that's something that I've done in the past, is collect the seeds on my own liatris and repropagate them the rest of the year. So Nancy, do majority of butterflies prefer plants that are around 3 foot high to lower height than the varieties? It all depends. It really does. I don't think there is a specific height that they prefer. As long as you give them a mass amount of flowers to land on and different flower shapes to feed on, they're going to be happy in that garden. Dwarf firebush is fine. It's perfectly fine. I think I grown most all the types of firebush at my house. I'm very fond of Clusa. Um, I'm very fond of the new lime one that's coming out. The native one you can't beat, but it gets really, really big. We have that in our demo garden. They also have one that gets very, very small, and I forgot the name of it. It has very small flowers. Okay, let me go to the Q&As here. If I buy a vine from a big, Beverly says, if I buy a vine from a big box store that has insecticides on it, killing the caterpillars, do the insecticides go away as the leaves are eventually replaced? In time it will, but could take some time depending on if it's an imidacloprid or something like that. So it may remain in that plant for a number of months, okay? But it all depends on which active ingredient it is. That's why whenever I get, in my butterfly garden, I always wanted to get plants that I didn't mind plants that had aphids on them. Like if you're going to go get milkweeds on it, milkweeds typically always have milkweed aphids on it. So if you have a milkweed out there in a box store that doesn't have milkweed aphids on it or milkweed seed bugs, then I'm a little questioning it, whether it has an imidacloprid or something else like that in it. If it has insects, then I know it's pretty much good to go. Yeah, a lot of these plants attract a large number of bees. Yeah, Bonnie said, once you have tropical sage, you have it sprouting up everywhere. Yep. Yeah, that you do. Good and bad, right? I have it coming up, but here's the thing. If you catch that tropical sage when it's very, very small, and you can transplant it very, very easily into another part of your yard or into a pot or whatever. So that may give people an option. Gita, thank you so much. Thank you, Bert. Appreciate it. Thank you, Angela. I haven't done a butterfly talk in so long, so I always love doing them. Yeah, a lot of people are running out of milkweed. Yeah. So what happens in the wild without intervention? Do caterpillars eat each other, or do some of them starve? Well, here's the thing. I don't think with milkweed, I don't think that really happens with native milkweed so much, but with plants like your eastern black swallowtail, there'll be so many caterpillars on a plant that none of them will grow to adulthood. So unfortunately, a couple of times I had to disperse them because that's the only way that I could have a couple survive. Because they would, if you have ever fed Eastern blacks, they're voracious feeders. You have to feed them a lot. But the other ones, I haven't seen that case for me. Maybe a more Jarrett question, but I've only seen like huge, like incredible competition with the Eastern blacks. Angela, yeah, the demo garden's located in Bushnell. Here, it's just a very small garden. We have some native plants in there. But, some of my favorite gardens to go to visit different themes and stuff like that is the Discovery Garden in Lake County. Orange County Extension has a wonderful demo garden over there by the airport. And of course, New Orlando, Lou Garden's one of my favorite gardens out there. Yeah, Brenda, I have your email, so you'll get the recording. Like I said, just make sure if you don't get something, email me, please, and make sure I send it to you. Bonnie, you can really move Passion Vine any time of year. I'll just make sure that you're not moving it when we have an expected freeze come. But you can still move it right now, it's fine. Or if you want to wait early spring, you can transplant it, and that way, it's going to be actively growing, and it'll probably transplant a little bit better. It'll probably not grow as fast right now in the fall compared to the spring, but Passion Vine's pretty tough. Hey, Nancy, thank you. Thanks, Brenda. Okay. Oh, so Nee says the Florida Museum is having a plant sale this weekend. There you go. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Juliet. I appreciate you guys. All right, so we got 71. So we get some of y'all filling out the survey for me, please. We'll call it a day and I'll answer some more questions. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it, Carla. Thank you, guys. I'll wait till a little bit and we'll go over the test here in a few minutes. And like I said, you have a you'll get the recording, and also if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, just let me know and I'll sign you up. And this is how you hear about all of our upcoming presentations and hikes, because I usually give I'll send out an email a couple days out prior. And in the springtime, I'm going to be cranking out the hikes a lot. So I'm hoping to do 1 or 2 a week in Sumter, Hernando counties, and maybe joining up with other counties as well, surrounding counties in the future too. So look for those. Oh no, I forgot to do that, Connie. I'm sorry. There's an option on Zoom where I had the panelists do the poll, and I forgot to do it. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Carla, you should see the survey on the screen. If not, don't worry about it. Sometimes sometimes it's a Zoom glitch. And it's coming October pretty quick, so we'll have the new version of our newsletter coming out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So sorry if I cut somebody off, and we'll go ahead and share the results here. Let's see. So the swallowtail family, Papillionidae, have more butterflies in the family than others. No, remember, I told you guys, it's the brush-footed butterflies, Nymphalidae. Okay. Males have brushy antennae, while females have a slim club antenna. That's false. That's only with moths. Male monarch and queen butterflies have one small, round, dark spot located on each hind wing. Females do not. That's true. The spines on the Gulf fritillary caterpillar are venomous. Nope, all fake. And of course, I changed the word around them. I said it 3 or 4 times. So butterflies have a Jacobson organ. It's Johnston's organ. So the Jacobson organ is kind of like the heat pit, the pit that you have on a pit viper, on a snake. So that is not that. All right, you guys did okay. Okay. All right, everyone. So thank you for your time today. Everyone have a very safe weekend. I know we do have a storm coming up from the south, so hopefully that thing will steer away from everybody. But if you have any questions, just email me. And like I said, if you don't have a response, please email me again and make sure I don't forget you. Okay. And just let me know what you guys need in the near future. So appreciate everyone. Julieta, Heather, Marilyn, Nancy, Vicky, all my panelists that have out there, Connie, Claudia, thank you guys for attending as well. So have a good Friday. Have a good weekend.